Yá'át'ééh. Good morning, my relatives. This is Mark Charles. It is Thursday, May 30th, and I'm sitting here with my second cup of coffee. And I'm really excited because today I get to have a conversation with a new friend, someone I met about a year ago, Logan Tsinigine. He is from near Antelope Valley and up near the Four Corners, are up near Page, Arizona. And he and his family have been working hard for the past several years to produce a documentary called Bad Indian Hiding in Antelope Canyon. And I had an honor of being a part of that documentary and sharing some of my uh, uh, history, that research I've done on the doctrine of discovery, as well as on the Long Walk and Abraham Lincoln. And the documentary premiered last month. I think it was maybe 6 or 7 weeks ago at the film festival in Phoenix, Arizona. And I was thrilled to be down there for that at the Phoenix Film Festival. And today, Logan's found some time to join me. His life has been very busy for the past few months, but he has some time in the midst of a move and everything else to join me for a second cup of coffee. So, but before I begin, I want to do like I always do and just acknowledge I'm speaking to you from Piscataway lands. I moved here with my family from the Navajo Nation about a decade ago, but I want to honor the Piscataway as the hosts of the lands where I'm now living. I want to thank the Piscataway for their stewardship of these lands. And I want to just state how humbled I am to be living, walking, breathing, running on these lands today. Also, at the end of our interview here on my second cup of coffee, Logan and I are going to be on my Patreon as part of the Ask Questions tier. We're going to have a follow-up Q&A there. That Ask Questions tier is $10 a month to join that tier. If you'd like to join us there and go more in depth and have a Q&A with Logan and myself, you can. If you're already a member of Patreon, you can join there. The Zoom link should be in your feed. And if you aren't a member of my Patreon site, you can subscribe and you'll get immediate access to that feed at the Ask Questions tier. But anyway, let me bring Logan on and we'll get our conversation started. Logan, Yá'át'ééh. It's so good to see you again. I know you're very, very busy right now. The premiere of Bad Indian happened several weeks ago, and I think that not only increased the business of your tour company, but also brought a lot of other opportunities your way for you and your family. So thank you for taking time to join me this morning. I welcome you here, and I'm thrilled to be able to have a conversation with you this morning.
Good to see you again, Mark. Thank you. Life's been crazy busy since the film festival, and joining here from Antelope Canyon, and this has been home for us for at least 160 years. So we're blessed to still be on our native lands. Thank you.
Well, Logan, I almost don't know where to start. You and I have spent a fair amount of time together. We've had a lot of really good conversations. The thing is, we've been able to see the documentary, but the documentary isn't released publicly except in film festivals. So a lot of people have not been able to see it. So as this is the story of your family and your area where your family has lived on the reservation, how do you describe this documentary to people? And what do you use to kind of draw people into the story and get them interested in this documentary?
We on our tour website we have the full trailer. It's a 2 minute trailer and it gives everyone a good visual and some of the context for what's in the documentary. But when I talk to people personally, I tell them it's our family story and it's about my great great grandfather, and he was murdered by the Western agency BIA because he wouldn't send his daughter to boarding school, and he had found out that she was being abused and some other stuff, so he was against it. And the superintendent had a personal issue with him, and that led up to what happened. And it also goes into how my family ended up at this location. As tourists and visitors come to the tour to Antelope Canyon and take a tour, that's a lot of things of what they ask. And so we thought that once we had all this information, the idea was, why don't you create a documentary and you can show that to the tourists as they come, and that'll answer a lot of their questions, because we only have a short amount of time with them, but the people, as they learn and as they leave, they want to know so much more.
Yeah. So I shared both the link to your company, Taadidiin Tours. I actually put it onto the photo page because the photo page of the canyon is absolutely beautiful. So I put it onto that page, but I also shared the trailer on YouTube to the Bad Indian trailer. And so I encourage everyone, go to the Antelope Canyon X or the Taadidiin Tour website and search around there. You can find more about the tours that Logan and his family do. You can hear some of their story. You can see some amazing pictures of the canyons back there, and you can watch the trailer of Bad Indian. So it was literally a year ago. I was at the Navajo Nation, their Treaty Days event, which is on June 1st every year, and I was speaking. I had been asked to speak there regarding my research into the doctrine of discovery, and especially the way that the long walk for our people was orchestrated and even ordered by Abraham Lincoln as he was seeking to ethnically cleanse the northern, central, and southern routes of the railway to make room for the Transcontinental Railway and complete manifest destiny. And your tour company and your production company had a cultural consultant at that event. He came, I'm not sure if he came just to hear me or he just happened to be there, but he heard my presentation about Lincoln, and he had never heard that Lincoln was not only the orchestrator, but he was specifically working to ethnically cleanse the routes of the railway. And I remember Paul and I had a conversation after my presentation, and he said to me, "We need to get your voice into this documentary that we're filming." And then he put me in touch with you, and you brought me out, and I was thrilled to be a part of your project. I know as you've gone into this documentary, that's just one of the stories of how events and the history and the stories went more in depth and got got bigger than you probably imagined. What are some other things that happened along the way as you began to, once you decided to make the documentary, what new things kind of developed along the way that you're like, oh wow, we have to include this, we have to bring this in here, and in the end you ended up with more than you thought you had when you even began?
It felt like fate. The man you're describing is Paul Begay. He's a former council delegate for the Navajo Nation, and he is our cultural and history advisor here at the tour company. He is one of 7 researchers that are working, or were working, and are still working on our projects. The Navajo Nation Museum and the Navajo Nation Library had information about our family. So we had been in email communication with them, and we had sent Paul to Window Rock to retrieve that information for the documentary. And it just happened to be that you were there at the same time. And he said, "I'm going to listen to this guy." I don't think he knew who you were. He says, and then by the end, he said, Mark's story, Mark, from Mark's view, this makes sense. He says, why would they remove us from this area when there's really nothing here? What's the whole point in this whole thing? And as he was going through, he references another headman that's an older elder from our tribe. He says, we like peace. We don't like to go to war. We don't like to do different things. And he says it makes sense that we were removed for the railroad. And then after that, we started the discussion, and then things just bridged together, and the result was the documentary. As far as discovering new things, my sister and another descendant of Taadidiin, they were at Diné College. They found some material about him, and that's my great grandfather. And I had started to do some research, and we had just skimmed the surface until one day a Navajo journalist named Alistair Batsui contacted us and wanted for us to tell our story. So he's working on boarding schools all over the nation. And a Navajo elder had told him, "You need to go talk to this family." The man's name that was murdered was Taadidiin, and in Navajo, Taadidiin means corn pollen.
Yeah.
But Tadidinii, like ne in Navajo, means you or yours. And so when that's combined, that's his name, Tadidinii. And said, okay, yeah, their tour company is actually named after him, and it's Taadidiin Tours. And Alistair said, I had no idea. I've been driving by your business for years, and I had no idea that's the connection of your great-great-grandfather and your tour company. You're just honoring him by the name. And I said, yes. And so he set up an interview. My mother and I, Rita Taadidiin Tsinigine, we interviewed with him. It was very, I would say awkward, because our family had kept this to ourselves for the longest time. And some of our elders were just basically, they had the opinion, just leave it alone. It was tragic. What happened to us during the long walk, it happened. You can't change it. The murder, it is what it is. We're not going to get anything back. But as we go along this path, a lot of our younger people are asking more questions. Why is this happening like this? Why did they do this to us? And to this day, I have asked many of those young people, who was the president during the long walk? And none of them have got the answer right, that it was Abraham Lincoln. So at that point, our younger people are asking questions. Why do this to us? What was so bad about who we are? And so they start looking at it in those terms as almost like an injustice. Is like, well, what did we do to deserve this treatment? And then you go through and we tell them the story about the railroad and why they had to move us and things like that. And it makes sense to them. Oh, there was a purpose for us to be moved. So that's the journey we're on. Alistair published his article in High Country News. And at that point, we had actually three other people contact us and said, we have part of your story as well.
Wow.
And then we started to get all this information together, all this material, all this documentation. And then all of a sudden, we had the court documents, we had all the depositions, we had the indictment, we even have his autopsy of my great-great-grandfather. And all of those are included in the documentary. And I don't even recall who came up with the idea, but basically I think someone said, you guys need to make a documentary. You guys have so much stuff. So to this date, to today, we have 500 documents. We've gone from the National Archives in DC to the National Archives in Riverside. The Huntington Library had some of our stuff. The University of New Mexico had some of our stuff. The Klein Library at NAU had some of our stuff. And so it's kind of just exploded into all of these things. And it's just been one wild ride. Like every other week, it seemed like we were getting something new. Now we have pictures of my great-great-grandfather. And the coolest thing is he was a police officer. He was a police officer
Really?
Before the new superintendent for Western Agency got to Tuba City. That superintendent fired all the Navajo policemen and replaced them with, I feel comfortable calling them the goons that murdered my great-great-grandfather.
Wow.
And so he was labeled this bad Indian from all the court documents, the government documents, the newspapers, and coming to find out he was a man of he was law enforcement. He believed in the law, but as Alistair would say, it's kind of, what is your belief? If your belief is holding on to your tradition, to your culture, that's an opposition to assimilation and the whole purpose of the boarding school. And so you have this conflict, and now our young people are trying to learn how to live in both worlds, trying to keep our culture, but also going to institutions where we learn in college and things like that. And sometimes they don't align. So and so we have a lot of young people. We have 5 corn pollen interns that'll be here this summer. They're going to learn from the company, and then they're also going to spend a couple weeks with Paul. And we've also brought on another member. Her name's Renee Holt, and she is from she's a postdoc from the University of Idaho, and she's helping us with our new project.
Wow.
So it's just been crazy. It's been insane. Yeah.
So the film was very well received in Phoenix. It sold. You had to add a few extra showings. I think 1 or 2 extra showings at the film festival. What has been the response since then? I know you've been doing a lot more interviews. What's been the response you've had since then to the documentary, and what are your hopes of what will happen with it as you move forward?
The response to the film festival has been amazing. As you mentioned, when we got our initial showings at the film festival, at the Phoenix Film Festival, they gave us 3 theater showings. All 3 sold out by Tuesday, and the first showing was going to be on Friday. Our company, our family, our friends were going to purchase our tickets on Wednesday. So they contacted us and said, all your shows are sold out. Congratulations. And we said, we don't have no tickets. We can't see our own show. And they assumed that we had bought our own tickets to our own show. And it was people that we knew. And we told the film festival, no, we don't know these people. This is not us. We need to see it. And they were they moved some things around, and they were able to get us an additional showing in their largest theater.
Yeah.
And so we were able to invite everyone to that showing. It was early Saturday morning, and that's where most of the Navajos, most of the production company, and most of our friends, that's where the showing they went to.
Yeah.
I was very surprised, and I don't know if you remember this or recall, most of the showings were non-native. Many of the guests were non-native. And I had assumed that most of these shows were going to be all Navajos or natives around the Phoenix Valley. But it was very surprising. And the reaction and the response from the viewers was amazing. About a week or 2 later, I was here at the tour company working, and I was sitting at the front office on a bench. And one of the customers came up to me and sat down, and we just started a conversation. And
did your camera die there?
Oops, connection lost, reconnecting.
Oh, there you are. You're back.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, you're back. Here we are again. Okay, you're back again. Let's see if this keeps working.
So that's the internet from the Navajo Nation. That's what you get. So this customer sits with me, and we start talking, and all of a sudden the customer is apologizing to me. I am so sorry that we did this to your people. And this is the customer that had gone and seen the film at the Phoenix Film Festival and decided to come and see our tour company and see the area. And it was one of the craziest experiences. We were having almost like I don't know, like a revival. Yeah. Like they were apologizing. I was telling them it's okay. We're just telling our story. I don't expect anything from you, out of you, but I appreciate the sentiment. And so more and more, we're getting a lot of this response and these comments is like, we had no idea. We had no idea. And so for us, that's the amazing part is we're getting our story out there and we're bringing awareness to the boarding schools. A lot of customers don't understand the long walk and exactly what happened to us. And so as we go on with the film festivals, the way you get on a streaming service like a Hulu, a Netflix, is for documentaries, you'll send them to film festivals, and then the more film festivals they get in, they get more attention, and then the streamers will pick them up. By chance, are you familiar with the Lakota Sioux documentary that's on Hulu now?
I've heard it there. I haven't seen it yet.
So if you see it, and it's like they're talking about the Black Hills and payment, and they want the land back. They don't want the government's money. If you see it, the first part of that film or that documentary, they put it in. I think there's like 10 film festivals before they were picked up, because that film's from 2022, and it's on Hulu now. So that was a 2-year journey for them, and that's just the process. Is you go on the film festival circuit, and then you hope that you get picked up by a streaming service. For us, that would be the ultimate goal. And then after that, we'd like to show it at local theaters in Arizona, because that's where most of the Navajo people are, and they relate to it personally. We did have a private showing in Page, and it was invite only. So for the film festivals, you have to abide by certain rules. You can't show it to the general public. You can't charge for it, and it's by invite only. So we had one of those events in Page, because it was the showing was just before our half marathon, and we needed to show our employees and their family the documentary. So we showed it, and it was a roller coaster of emotion. There was a lot of older Navajos that when Paul in the boarding school information is brought up, they were shaking their heads. They were saying, yes, that's the way it happened. Yeah, they physically abused us. They did these different things, and there was crying. People were crying. It felt like healing. And then there's also the other parts of the documentary where there's some Navajo humor in there, and if you're non-native, you don't understand some of those things, because Navajo humor in itself is, you have to understand the language and the context. And there was a lot of laughs. And so for us, it was really a huge roller coaster, but everyone that's seen it has come back with awesome responses, and we've got a lot of gratitude for telling our story. We get a lot of people that say, we have no idea. We didn't know how you got your name. We didn't know how you ended up there, but thank you.
Yeah. I remember after each of the showings at the film festival, we had a Q&A. And I remember so often the Q&As went almost the exact same way my Q&As go after my lectures on the history, where they got into, I didn't know this happened, and they wanted more details about that. And I felt very comfortable in those Q&As, because these were questions I had heard numerous times after every time I give a presentation. I was thrilled to see that your documentary and the story of your family brought people to the same point, which means it's educating people, and it's helping people to see, people who don't know this history, to see that and to hear that history. And then they have to wrestle with it, and they have to acknowledge, okay, this is what our nation did. What are we going to do about that? Like, how do we move forward as a nation when we have such a devastating and tragic and even oppressive history? And so I felt really good about the way Bad Indian hiding in Antelope Canyon kind of brought that dialogue out. We're almost out of time here, but what are some of the film festivals you're trying to get into? What film festival let me ask you this. What film festival would you love to be in? What's your kind of the pinnacle of where you want to be? And what are some that you're hoping to hear back from soon?
My ideal film festival was the Phoenix Film Festival. One, because it was local, and a lot of the people that wanted to see it could travel to it and watch it. Oh no, it says reconnect. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay. And it was the very first one. So sometimes these films, just getting into the first film festival is the hardest, and then after that, the other film festivals are able to see that it is worthy enough to get into the first one. And then after that, you have a better chance of getting into more.
Yeah.
The 3 that we are waiting for now is Native Spirit, the South Dakota Film Festival, and we entered it in Melbourne. So that one would actually be cool, because that would give me an excuse to go.
In Australia.
in Australia. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So if you don't know, and a lot of people, the Aboriginals, they had a lot of colonization issues in their history as well, and so that's the reason that we went that direction.
Yeah.
It's a sad thing that happened, but we're hoping to share our story with those natives as well.
Yeah, I have some very good friends who are Aboriginal from Australia, and we've talked extensively about their history and how similar it is to the history here in the U.S. If this film got into the Melbourne Festival, that would be amazing because I'm sure it would be well received in that area. That would be really exciting to see. I'd have to let a bunch of people know. I know a lot of people in Australia, so I'd have to let them know to make sure they try and get to Melbourne to check that out. So anything else you want to say before we close this, Logan? Anything else that you're excited about moving forward? Our next steps for your tour company, our next steps for telling your family's story. What's coming up next for you?
I would first like to give a plug to Alistair Batui. He is the Navajo journalist that I mentioned. He was basically the catalyst in getting the documentary started and just having all the information explode. He just graduated from NYU, and he is a big part of telling our story, reclaiming our history. He was featured on a Channel 3 news spot that the Phoenix news station had done. And I just have so much gratitude and thankfulness that we were able to meet him and work with him. And I just wanted to put that out there. Alistair's done a lot of good work with the boarding schools and uncovering just a lot of just tragic and just awful things. And I know physically and mentally, spiritually, he had gone through a lot because he was finding information about all these children that were abused, they were murdered, they were buried on a boarding school land. And I know that took a lot out of him.
Yeah.
And to do what he's doing and to come help us, that's just it's just I think that's a great testament to his character and who he is. As far as the tour company, the publicity has been great. We've had a lot more people. We've had more people this year, customer wise, than we've had in the past, and some of that I think has to do with the documentary. We are integrating our history and our culture more and more into our tours as we're learning things about not just my great grandfather, but we have also found in our recent research his father. So now we're going back 8 generations here at Antelope Canyon, and we have found my great grandfather. And so it's just been exciting and learning about these men that fought, they resisted, and they were trying to keep our people intact.
Yeah. Well, Logan, it's always good to spend some time with you. I'm sharing one more article here. It was written by KJZZ. It looks like it's a radio station that also did a feature on the film, the documentary. And so I put that into the link. I put also earlier the link to your tour company as well as the trailer. And Bad Indian Documentary has an Instagram account. So if people want to follow and hear more, I'm assuming you're going to announce on this Instagram what film festivals you're getting into and what kind of the next steps are for that. So I just put that link into there. And then if you're a follower of me or if you subscribe to my Patreon, Logan and I are going to be on my Patreon in about 5 minutes, and we'll have a follow-up Q&A there. And if you would like to join us there, you can. If you're already subscribed to my Patreon, you can join us if you're a part of the Ask Questions tier or above. If you're not a part of my Patreon, you can join it now and get the link today and still join the Q&A we're going to have there. But Logan, this has been a great conversation. I'm so grateful. I met Paul a year ago and that he introduced us, and I was honored and thrilled to be a part of this project and telling the story of our Diné people up near the Page area and Antelope Canyon area. So thank you for your work. Thank you for all of the time and energy and money you're investing into telling this story. And I'm deeply grateful for the dialogue that you and your family are beginning to engage through this documentary. So, Logan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us. This is my second cup of coffee, and I hope your cup of your favorite morning beverage is as good as mine has been. If you want to join us on Patreon, I just put the link into the site, into the chat. But walk in beauty, my relatives, and may we all learn how to walk in beauty together. Hakona.